Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this edition of O&M Tech Talk. This is Bill Acevedo, and today we are going to show you some use cases around Traffic Flow Analyzer, understanding who is using the network resources and what they are being used for. And today my panelist is Brandon Norgard, who will be providing that demonstration. During the meeting, if you need to leave, if you want to ask him a question, you can enter it into the chat window. And we'll try to get to those questions at the end of the session. Okay, let's get started here. I'm going to pass this over to Brandon.
All right, thank you. So one of the main purposes of Traffic Flow Analyzer is to be able to see who is using network bandwidth and what they're being used for. So unlike performance monitoring, you can actually see the endpoints. You can see who's sending data and who is receiving data and what applications they're using. So we can go here, we can start from the traffic flow tab, and we can see that there are these portlets showing several different ways in which the data is summarized. We can see the top 5 applications across all exporters. And we can also see down here, we can see the exporters. And so I think what we're interested in is who is doing that. So if we see first of all, actually, I think what we would want to start with is the endpoint. So we have endpoints, we also have senders and receivers. Now an endpoint can be either a sender or a receiver. So it's those put together. We can see that we have, for each one of these, we have the IP address, and we can see how much the bits per second in and out. Now this is just a summary. This view here shows all the summary portlets so that you can get an idea of several different ways of summarizing the data on the same screen. But if we want to see more information, we expand the portlet by clicking on a plus sign in the upper corner. And this will then show a line graph showing the time slice data over the course of the last hour. And we can actually also see longer period of time, like the last 6 hours, or perhaps even if we want to see a full shift, maybe we're at the end of a working shift in the last 8 hours, maybe we're interested in that. So this is showing 10-minute data over the course of the last 8 hours, and I can change it to also the last 24 hours. So we see here, these are the highest ones in terms of bits per second, and I can also, maybe I'm interested in total bytes. I want to see, here are the top 5 endpoints in terms of total bytes sent and received. Maybe I'm interested also actually in the top 10. If I can do that, I get another page here of another 5. And actually, you know what we're also interested in, probably more interested in, is the not just the reported sample values coming from, because SFlow and NetFlow are both sampled. So if we want to extrapolate from that and report on the estimated values, then we can switch that with this button right here. And then so this will tell us now we actually changed. This is a much more accurate representation of the top endpoints, and we can see for this endpoint, you know, this one right here, let's say it's using a lot of bandwidth over the last 24 hours. So then I can click into it, and then I can get a more detailed understanding. Now when I just click into it, I see that the information separated by what exporters are reporting on it. Now, if I want to see what this endpoint is doing over the last 24 hours, I can switch this to top 10 applications and refresh it, and I'll see for this endpoint, here's what it was doing. Here's what this endpoint was sending and receiving information for SNMP, file transfer. You know, maybe I want to see what's going on with this file transfer, what's going on there, and I can click into it even further, and every time I click into something, it will add to that context. If I want as well, I can see the conversations. I can change it again. I can see here's the different conversations that were happening. And if I want to click in even further, I can then see the specific times that were sent and received. And maybe I actually want to see more detailed information. Looks like we don't necessarily have information going back that far. So that's how, once you know that, for the endpoint, for this endpoint IP address, maybe you're also interested in the senders and the receivers, like who's sending a lot of information or who's receiving a lot of information. You can see that as well. You can see what they're doing at what times, and this then allows you to know that, and you can go and take action against them or reconfigure the network in some way based on that. And okay, so that's the first use case. We also have another use case that let's say we have performance monitoring that is periodically going to these devices and seeing what is the packet loss, maximum RTT, and other metrics, and and then from there we can actually, because we can configure thresholds to say if it's over a certain value, then create an alarm. So if we do have that alarm, then we can get more context. We can use TFA to get more context about who did what the cause was, what endpoints were perhaps a factor in causing that problem. So let's do that first. Let's say we have these monitors configured, like the default interface monitor and the default ICMP monitor. These are going to all the devices and pinging them periodically. And this one here, this default interface monitor, is periodically getting information for all of the subcomponents for these devices. And so then we have alarms. This is going to actually, it's going to create an alarm based on how those monitors are configured, it might create an alarm. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the portlet. This allows me to put in some additional filter criteria. What I'm interested in here is the event name that is monitor attribute trend. And this is the type of alarm that is created when a monitor attribute crosses a threshold. So now to correlate this to the TFA data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this view and go to the exporters, expand that so we can see the different exporters. So this is the information that we have now. So what we would need to do is for any device, we would have to not only be getting information from performance monitoring, but it would also have to be configured to send SFlow or NetFlow information, and you'd have to also have it as a registered exporter. So once you have all of that, if you do happen to get a monitor attribute trend at a certain time, then you can correlate between the two. Now for several of these that I do have in a monitor attribute trend, I don't have traffic flow data. So I'm going to have to look, for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to have to narrow it down to one of these IP addresses here. I believe that's equipment. I believe that was one of them. 2.18. Let's see if there's any with that. Sorry, 6.18. Okay, so there is one. It's monitor attribute trend, and if we cover over the message, we can see that there was an RTT slow response that happened on the 9th of August at 6:43 p.m. So if we go back to that, well, maybe we can see what that is here. That was a few days ago. I probably don't have detailed information about this, so some of the data is going to age out. keep that in mind. So these are the default settings for how long we're keeping different types of data. So you're not going to be saving 1 minute data for a year. That takes up way too much disk space. But we are saving hourly data for 5 days, and we should actually have the hourly data for that. If I say custom here, I want to the last 5 days, and then I also I want to change the granularity. See, at first it's going to actually show you daily data, but if we want to change the granularity with this button here to say hourly, so now we actually do have hourly data. There's a pretty big gap where it looks like the server was down for some reason. But if we go to, we can now correlate that to this on the 9th at 6:43 p.m. So that is right here. Okay, so this is where it is right now, and it's somewhere between these two data points that and in fact we can zoom in. We can click and highlight, and we can zoom in here, and it's somewhere between these two data points that we had that problem as correlated to this alarm. And so we can even, if we want, go to applications. What was going on? Actually, I probably want to click into this here, or maybe I'll click into this one, and then I want to change it to applications, top applications, and see what was happening at the time for this exporter corresponding to this alarm here. What was happening at that time? What applications were being used? Maybe it was caused by someone using this application here. And if I want to do that, I have this in context, this exporter in context in this application, and then I can go to see who was receiving information on that. Maybe just for example, I know that this is a hypothetical here because this isn't the data that I'm looking at, but it might be someone using YouTube at that time, using a high bandwidth application or some non-standard application that's causing errors on the device. So we can see here, we would be able to zoom in, just assuming that this is some non-standard application, and we can see, here's what was going on at the time, and here are the top receivers of it. Maybe it was one of these two, and we could go there. We could, after having this information, we could go to that and take action against it. So these are the two that we wanted to highlight here today. And keep in mind, another thing we could do is this is something I wanted to mention as well. If we have an idea of maybe some of these top applications are having issues, we could say, I want to look at the top 5 applications for the last, maybe 24 hours, and then I could, when I have this here, maybe top 10 applications. Maybe I want to look at this every day, and I want to see what are the top applications. What I can do is I can save it. I can save, and I'm also interested in the estimated actual value. So instead of having to go in and change these every day, I could just actually save the view. I could load the snapshot, and I think I actually have one saved here. So I did this already. I should be able to load up a snapshot of the one that I created the other day, S&P endpoints for the last 24 hours. This is assuming that I have an interest in the endpoints using this specific application, the top 10 and estimated actual values. And so then I can go to this every day and see what's going on with it. And then I could also export it to CSV if I want. Okay, now I think that concludes these two use cases, and so I'll turn it back over to Bill real quick here.
Okay, if there's any questions, we'll take questions now. So So the IP fix is the question. IP fix will be supported in the next release. It's just another protocol format for traffic flow, but that will be fully supported in the next release. Yeah, let's see if we have any other questions here. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so I think I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Tech Talk.
All right, thank you.